Welcome back to the Traders Network. I'm Michael Yorba, your host. Thanks for joining us. We're also streaming to you live on yorbamedia.com and broadcasting to you from the Dallas KFXR 1190 AM Clear Channel studios. All right, my first guest for the next two segments is Pete Manca. He's a CEO of I'm going to have a tongue-tied thing with this here. Egenera, and they are a cloud infrastructure company. They're helping companies manage the network of your technology for today and the future. Pete, welcome back to the show. Hopefully I didn't butcher up the name too bad.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
All right, my pleasure. Let me back up a little bit and give you a chance to tell us, our audience, familiarize yourself with our audience or vice versa, with who you are and what your company does, and we'll get into some of the new things that you've done to your company and your technology as we go forward.
Sure. So the company Egenera has been around for 14 years, and we were started many, many years ago really with the premise of simplifying customers' data center infrastructure. And when we started the company, we really tried to come at it from a customer perspective and look at how we can just simplify the management of the customer's environments. And as technology's evolved and as the company's evolved, we've pushed more into the cloud space over the last several years. And as cloud has taken on a bigger component of data center use and data center spend, we've transitioned our product and our company to be about managing cloud resources and managing the cloud. And again, trying to do that in a way that simplifies and makes it easier for our customers to manage their applications, manage their infrastructure.
I really like your tagline, mission control for your cloud. That's well suited. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, let's start off by talking about some of the 2013 enhancements that you've made to your product.
Right. So in 2013, we really expanded the product to take it from, really kind of simpler basic cloud management to be much more open, much more heterogeneous, and much more hybrid. And I'll describe what I mean by those. We started off originally as a company that our cloud product was able to manage slices of machines, if you will, slices of resources, like most cloud companies. And we then added the capability to provide our customers with the ability to choose between having just slices or offering the whole physical server that itself to the customer via the cloud. And then we started offering our customers the ability to manage multiple different vendors' hardware, multiple different vendors' virtualization technology, and finally, and most significantly this past year, we added the capability for the customer to manage a hybrid cloud environment. And what that means is manage a cloud environment that spans both the internal behind-the-wall private cloud, if you will, all the way out through to public clouds like Amazon's or Rackspace or SoftLayers, giving the customer really the ability to have the best of both worlds from a single management interface.
Talk to us about the types of organizations that you work with and the way that you, we'll drill down into, you gave us the overview on it, but drill down into some of the specifics of how you help companies perform better by the use of your services.
Sure. We target two main markets. We target the private cloud market, which is typically enterprises. When we say mission control for your cloud, we're really talking about enterprise-class cloud capabilities. And the enterprise market looks for things like security and disaster recovery and high availability and all the protections required around their applications. So in that private cloud market, we're enabling our customers to have the ability to very quickly create agile resource pools and manage them as if they're a cloud of resources. The other market that we target, and we've been quite successful in lately, is the service provider market. The service provider market itself is going under tremendous change with what's going on in the public cloud markets, and they need to be able to offer something very quickly to their customer base. And we enable them to very quickly come up to speed and come up with a cloud of their own, something they can brand themselves and sell to their customer base, so enabling them to continue to service their customers and not necessarily lose those customers to a public cloud environment.
Interesting. Now, just so first, because not everybody is up to speed with this product, this industry, this service that
Sure.
you are. The way that you are making the leaps and bounds of technology and coming in and servicing needs that some people don't even know, is it solely through software applications, or is there hardware involved? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's first really trying to understand what the cloud is, because the
Yeah.
name is just so overused in the industry. And when you look at the way IT has been managed over the years, typically it's either been managed inside a data center by a team of IT professionals that a company might hire, or it could be outsourced to a large vendor or a managed service provider like say a Savvis or a CenturyLink now or one of those companies. What the cloud does is the cloud is really taking that outsourced model but adding some capabilities around self-service capabilities, location independence, and real fine-grained billing. So rather than you owning the hardware or you renting the hardware from some outsource company, really what you're doing is you're buying slices of hardware when you need them and where you need them. And those slices could be as small as by the hour, by the day, by the month, by the year. And so when I talk about cloud, I'm talking about the ability to, from a self-service point of view, the end user, which is an important part of cloud, can actually go rent those resources, as they need them, when they need them, and then when they don't need them anymore, turn them back off. And that's an important part of cloud.
Is it automated to the point where we don't? What your technology says we don't need this anymore, so let's shut it down, or is there somebody actually has to go in and manually say, you know what, we've done a monthly overview and now we're past that our peak point?
Yeah, it can be either way. It
Okay.
really depends on the cloud software. Our company or our software allows you to do it either way. You can decide to turn off the resources, or you can schedule them to be turned off automatically, based on usage patterns or based on end of month or whatever you want to put as a metric to turn things on and off.
Okay, that was just an aside for me. Now I wanted to move forward a little bit. Strategic relationships. You've had some new strategic relationships in 2013. Bring that out for us.
Sure. I mean, traditionally, our big relationships have been with the large technology companies, IBM, HP, Fujitsu, Dell, VMware, EMC, NetApp. Those have been our traditional partners, and I think they're most software companies' traditional partners, the large hardware or platform vendors. In 2013, we started shifting our focus really towards the managed service providers. And, I mentioned them earlier, but these are companies that are looking for ways to compete against, what I would call the Walmart of the cloud, which is Amazon. And these managed hosting providers who are struggling to keep their customers from going to these public clouds need a way to offer a compelling solution that is differentiated from Amazon, but is also competitive against the public clouds like Amazon out there. And they look to us to help them very quickly get a cloud up and running that they can sell as their own, brand as their own, essentially a white label cloud that enables them to offer their customers an alternative and keep them in the fold.
I would think that the IPTV, the Internet Protocol Television industry, which is emerging, they have fluctuating audience levels, and sometimes there's huge amounts of people coming in, and I would imagine that this would be a natural fit for that industry sector too.
It's a perfect fit, and any application or any type of user that has that kind of fluctuation or that need to grow or shrink on demand is a perfect fit. We have a customer in the electronic mortgage brokering services industry, where they essentially take the paperwork, the stacks and stacks of paperwork, and they electronify it, and they allow back-end brokerages and front-end customers to do the transaction through electronic process. And you think about that based on interest rate fluctuations and based on the home market, the housing market, their demand goes up and down, weekly, monthly, quarterly, based on those factors, and they leverage our product to allow them to flex up and flex down as needed. It's a perfect use for that kind of technology.
Sounds great. Let's take a break now and cover what's going on in 2014 for you on the other side of the segment. All right, Pete?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back with Pete Manca, CEO, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, but I'm going to try it, Egenera. And by the way, they are having a webinar on this technology February 26th. Go to their website, egenera.com. And special thanks to Monk Media and 1-800-Public Relations for all, publicrelations.com for all their PR and media support. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Traders Network. I'm Michael Yorba, your host. Thanks for joining us. We're also streaming to you live on yorbamedia.com and broadcasting to you from the Dallas KFXR 1190 AM Clear Channel Studios. My guest this segment, Pete Manca, CEO, Egenera. And this is the leading edge technology where all the communications are really going to. And Pete's here to straighten it all out for us. But Pete, welcome back to the segment. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Michael.
My pleasure. All right, 2014, the networking space. As we all know, this thing is just going to go from caveman to complete outer space with everything. Walk us through where you think we're going to go.
Right. So I think 2014 is going to be a major year for change. I think we've really just started scratching the surface. And in 2014, I think what happens is the cloud becomes much more mainline, much more commoditized, almost like what happened in the late 90s when the internet came around. And at first, folks were kind of, thinking of it a little wary, wasn't sure what to do with it. And all of a sudden, by early 2000s, it was, a basic fact of everybody's life. And now it's just everybody uses it as if it's constantly on like electricity. And I think the cloud's going to make that same transition over the next year or two, and into the future. And what I think is going to happen is I think the clouds that are out there now are going to become much more specialized. And so today what we see is clouds that are fairly generic, and you can purchase resources by the hour, by the day, by the month. What we're going to see is clouds that are specialized in terms of security, maybe in terms of applications like an SAP or an Oracle cloud, maybe in terms of reliability for easy failover or easy disaster recovery. And I think as those clouds become more specialized, it's almost going to be like a shopping mall where you go and you either go to the high-end stores and you want to get certain types of capabilities or certain types of resources out of that store.
Let's stop right there. Give us an example of what you think the capabilities are, or the shopping list could look like.
Well, I think it'll be spread across things like application verticals. We see some of that today. Salesforce.com is a perfect example of an application vertical that is a cloud application. I think that'll happen for a lot of different verticals within different industries. There may be medical applications that pop up around the whole Obamacare support infrastructure. I also think there'll be capabilities around service levels. Maybe you want just a cheap, inexpensive, I'll use Walmart again as the example, but you want sort of an inexpensive cloud resource, and you don't care if it fails once a day, once a month, once a year. But maybe there's other clouds that guarantee you uptime, guarantee you that it'll stay up for the whole year minus, 5 nines availability or, a few minutes a year. You may be willing to pay a premium for that. So I think what you'll see is differentiation in the cloud based on service levels, based on application verticals, based on security, and you'll be able to pick and choose based on price, based on features.
When it comes to breakthroughs on technology, like you're talking about, cloud technology, countries tend to invest a lot of resources in the early stages of something that could be this epic. And do you see the United States at maintaining that technology lead, or are we, slipping in some fashion?
Well, I think we're clearly maintaining the technology lead. I think where the risk is in the cloud, quite frankly, is around things like the Patriot Act. We're seeing that foreign governments don't want their data to be located in U.S. Data centers. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is clouds are now popping up in different countries' domains because they want to be able to keep their data within their country and not be subjected to policies like the Patriot Act and I'm sure others around the world that other countries might have. So that's actually a huge factor on where cloud is going today.
I was wondering about security. Is it as secure as the current internet protocols that we have for high-end security, or are there some improvements that need to be made as we go forward?
I think there's some improvements that need to be made. I think there's a little bit of hype or negative hype, if you will, going into it. If you think I'll go back to the internet
Mm-hmm.
example again. You never would have put your credit card into a website in the late 90s to buy something, but now you do it as if it's second nature. And I think there's some of that. There's a little bit of fear happening, but I also think there's room for improvement as well. There are some security aspects that are different because the cloud can involve some, very critical customer data that you just can't afford, you can't risk. And so there will be some enhancements in that area as well.
How do you feel about clouds that are focused, say, on mobile applications? Is that another market that is going to be an up-and-comer for cloud usage?
It's already a huge part of cloud uses. I mean, if you really think about your smartphone, it's the perfect cloud device. You have a small app that runs on your phone, and most of the data is sitting out somewhere in the cloud. So it's really already one of the major use cases for clouds today.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you'd mentioned earlier in the first segment something about hybrid clouds. Open that up for me.
Yeah, so hybrid cloud is going to be something we'll hear more and more about over this year and into the future. And what's happening is customers are realizing that certain applications, certain data sets should not live out in a public cloud. They've got to be behind their firewall, if you will, or within their own data center. Yet they like the idea of a cloud capability, the ability to quickly provision services for their end users. So they may have what's called the private cloud, which is something that runs in their data centers, but some of their applications might be perfectly suitable to be in a public cloud, say Amazon or Rackspace or SoftLayer. And so what a hybrid environment is an application or a set of applications that runs both inside the enterprise, inside the company, and outside in a public cloud. And what the management vendors are doing is giving the customers a way to manage all those resources from a single management interface, and that's the hybrid cloud.
It's interesting. And now that we're there, talk to me about the evolution. Where do you think this is going to eventually end up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I as we talked, I think the cloud's going to get more specialized, but then it's also going to get very confusing, right? Because there is no directory service to say what's the best cloud for my application. So what I think is going to happen, our vision for the future is that is the concept of what we call a cloud broker, something that sits in between all of these clouds and takes the user's requirements and based on the user requirements says, okay, this is the right cloud for this set of applications, this is the right cloud for that set of applications, brings them all together and presents them to the end user so the user doesn't have to go off and search all around for these different clouds that fit their environment. So I think cloud brokering is going to be sort of the next big wave in the cloud market.
It seems to me that most of the technology that you're talking about is really well beyond your average person, similar to when, in 1960s when they had computers. It was well beyond most of the people in the early 60s to even think about having a computer. Do you see this becoming a very retail-friendly environment as we go forward? And how long do you think it would take for your average person out there to figure out how to use the cloud in an optimum fashion from a retail point of view?
Right. So, yeah, I do see it getting to that point. I mean, I think it has to get to that point for it to get broad adoption. And to some degree, you're seeing that. There are some cloud applications, some of the things that Apple does with their iCloud and, the ability to store the music up in their cloud, or some of the backup clouds like Dropbox and some of those technologies are becoming much more user-friendly and easier for the less techy end user base. So I do think it's getting there, but it's got a long way to go. I think one of the nice things about the cloud is it hides a lot of the complexities behind a service, and that's the beauty of the cloud. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll enable it to become sort of a less techy discussion and more into consumer discussion.
Yeah, I can see that going in that fashion. Now, you've got a webinar coming up on February 26th. I think it's somewhere 2 Eastern. And
right.
What's going to take place in the webinar?
Well, we'll talk more about our cloud products. We'll talk about getting service providers and ISVs or software companies to the cloud. You can go to our website at www.egenera.com and sign up for the webinar. You can also follow us on our Twitter account or Facebook and get updates there as well.
Great. All right, Pete, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Michael. I enjoyed it.
My pleasure. All right, Pete Manca, CEO, Egenera, and EGENERA.com. Definitely mission control for your cloud. All right, on the other side of this break, we're going to come back with Vince Molinari, founder, Gate Global Impact, and his special guest, Daniela Foster, CEO, Emergent Leaders Network from the State Department. But before we go, I want to put out a special thanks to Monk Media and 1-800-PublicRelations.com for all their PR and media support. We'll be right back.